Killzone 3 had a multiplayer map called Bilgarsk Boulevard. Years later, when Killzone Shadowfall came out, it had that map as well, but they made some interesting changes to it, and they gave it a different name. They called it The Remains. Today I'm going to take a walk through both maps, showing you the differences between them, and speculating as to why the changes were made. By the way, welcome to the Just Killzone channel. This is the 5th video in my map comparison series for Killzone, and I have 2 more to come. So in the world of Killzone 3, Bilgarsk Boulevard is a large road that cuts through the middle of the war-torn city of Tharsis, the capital of the planet Helgen. While the road isn't mentioned within the campaign of Killzone 3, at least I didn't hear it, there is a place called the Bilgarsk Museum that you go through in the campaign, and outside is this road. So I assume it's the boulevard that the multiplayer map takes place on. In Killzone Shadowfall, the map returned and they changed the name to The Remains. I think they wanted to simplify the map names in Shadowfall to make them less lore dependent in order to attract new players. Both versions of the map consist of a single wide road that curves ever so slightly, and each side of it is surrounded by multi-story buildings with a variety of large and small rooms within them. Each end of the street is capped off by raised walkways. We'll start off next to one of those walkways, looking eastward from the Helgast side of the map. Everything you see today is recorded from botzone using a PS3 for Killzone 3 and a PS5 for Shadowfall. In Killzone 3, we get a good idea from this spot of how devastated the city is. It's filled with mostly gray colors. In Shadowfall, it's even more gray, but a bit brighter, and it has more of a dusty look, as if it's been sitting like this for years. As we look at the buildings around us, we see great graphical detail in the PS3 version. It looks good for Shadowfall too, but the exterior details of the buildings and everything is quite different from the other game. I speculate that the developers for Shadowfall rebuilt the entire map from scratch, and they didn't feel the need to make it match the Killzone 3 version. As we proceed north toward the middle of the Killzone 3 map, we see a small stream running through various things that are littering the road. In Shadowfall, we see things are bone dry, and there is a trench. This trench could have been man-made, but it's more likely the result of the destruction that came to the planet during the events of Killzone 3. I suppose it's possible that the water running through the middle of the map carved out that trench through erosion or something, but who knows. Now I want to cut down one of the alleys and look off the southeastern part of the map. Through this fencing, we can see there is a large but not deep body of water. I'm not sure if it's always been there or if it's just flooded from something to do with the war. In Shadowfall, we'll come down the same alley and we'll approach the edge of the map and we'll see that that fence is no longer there. So we get a better look at everything, and it's an incredible view of the destruction. The crust of the planet is buckling and the water is gone, apparently swallowed up by the giant fissure below. And in case you were wondering, yes, you can dive off the edge. Getting back to the center of the map, there is a sizable pit filled with water in Killzone 3. The same pit is there for Shadowfall, but it's about twice as deep, and the trenches that I mentioned earlier connect to it. And I remember during the multiplayer, you kind of had to stay in these trenches because a lot of people would use snipers on this map, and stepping out of that trench would often get you killed. Also in Shadowfall, there's a couple of tunnels off to the side that lead to some of the buildings. We'll continue to head down the street toward the walkway that's in the north. Notice the giant shards that have impacted the landscape. But in Shadowfall, those shards are gone. Now we are at the walkway, and we're going to go up there and walk across it. This is where snipers can make their presence known. In Shadowfall, that same walkway doesn't have steps leading up to it. It's instead an exit from the VSA base. I'll trade sides so that we can see it. The gaps in the wall are much bigger here, making them more sniper friendly in Shadowfall. We'll head to this corner of the map, which in Killzone 3 is a tactical spawn area. That's a point that any side can capture and their team can start spawning from that point. In Shadowfall, that same corner looks a lot different. We'll head away from that corner and through the back entrance to this building. Here's where things get very interesting. It appears to be some barracks where there's lots of places where people can sleep. However, the name of this building tells a different story. There's nothing on the screen that tells the name of these locations in Killzone 3, but I do have a beefy Killzone 3 strategy guide, and it has a very detailed breakdown of the map, and it says this place is called the North Clinic. That goes for the upstairs too, and up there it definitely looks like a medical clinic, including what looks to be a morgue. I would be nervous about going to a medical clinic with so much storage for bodies. In Shadowfall, we enter the building and things look quite different. It doesn't look like a barracks, and it doesn't look like a clinic. It has a modest amount of furniture and not much else. Unlike Killzone 3, the screen does tell me what this place is called, and it's known as the Officers Club. Okay. Upstairs, we see that the morgue is gone, so that's good. And there's more places where people can just sit around. But the big question here is why the building is a clinic in one game and an Officers Club in the other. Perhaps the Helghast repurposed the place. They were like, you know, with this war going on, we need fewer medical clinics and more places to sit around and talk. The more likely explanation is that Guerrilla Games retconned the map. Anyway, let's move further down the alley and take a turn here and enter the next building. I want to step directly into the lower level, and to do so, all I need to do is go through this entrance on the front of the building. In Shadowfall, when I turn that corner, there is a side entrance. The spot of the Killzone 3 entrance would have been right here, and obviously it's no longer there. Once inside, we see glowing rods and some stairways to the upper level. The room is a power station, according to the strategy guide. The upstairs part of it is basically a walkway that goes around the perimeter of the room. In Shadowfall, it's called the office lobby, and there's no longer anything that makes it look like a power plant. As we head upstairs, there's not much going on up there, except for the fact that they pretty much flipped the way the stairs are oriented. In Killzone 3, the stairs are on the other side of the room. It's quite an artistic change, and I'm not sure what the purpose in doing it was. Next, we'll go behind the power plant and stare off into the distance. And in Killzone 3, we see a pile of rubble with a tank sitting on top of it. There's also water gushing in. The water effects in Killzone 3 amaze me, and I encounter them a lot on the various maps. In Shadowfall, the rubble is gone, and there's some nice looking gates in their place. And there's no sign of any water. We see the remains of the city that's kind of curved inward because the planet's crust is becoming warped. Also notice the sides of the building go way up, and they appear to be high-rise apartments. Looking at those same buildings in Killzone 3, they don't go up as high, and those staircases are gone. In the next building down, we have the Helghast base camp. It's a complex set of rooms. It's seen better days, but there's some cool looking stuff in here. In Shadowfall, it's not the base, it's the cantina, with tables and, of course, couches. The layout is completely different, and it's a much smaller building. As mentioned, it's not a base. In Shadowfall, they completely moved the base to the other side of the street, for whatever reason. Now we'll head down the southern walkway to the other end of the street. There's not much to compare between the games here. And just off that bridge, in the first building, we have the Helghast base camp for Shadowfall. This is where it starts to get confusing. What appears to be the same building just off the walkway in Killzone 3 has a crashed ship embedded in it. But the thing is, there's no way to get into that building. There is a building right next to it, which appears to be the rough equivalent to the Shadowfall base. In general, this part of the map is just too different to compare, and I'm not going to say any more about it. By the way, in Killzone 3 here, I'm playing the botzone version of Warzone, but this map is also available to be played in guerrilla warfare mode, which is basically team deathmatch. The thing is, if you play deathmatch, this map is made to be smaller. They block off access to certain buildings. Like here at the entrance to the clinic, they have a door blocking off the entryway, and you can't go through it. Also, this back alley here has become blocked off. I guess they didn't want people hiding in the death matches. I don't know. We're gonna come down the back alley and look at the next building, and that one is called the Central Museum in Killzone 3. There's only one entrance to it, but in Shadowfall there is an upper and lower entrance. Here's what the inside of it looks like in Killzone 3. We'll head up to the upper floor, and there's some books and a few exhibits. I believe this is supposed to be a shrunken down version of this museum that we see in the campaign mode. In Shadowfall, this building is called Office Building. Wow, could they be any more generic? The layout is at least similar, and the upper windows are almost exactly the same, but the view from them shows, once again, the drastic differences in the appearance of the buildings. Here's something that's majorly different between the games. In Shadowfall, there is a walkway from this office building that takes you to the office lobby on the other side. And from that walkway, we get to see some dramatic views. In Killzone 3, there is no such walkway. It would have been right here where this pillar is. Now we are in this corner of the map, and it functions as the ISA base camp in Killzone 3, and it's the VSA base camp in Shadowfall. It's very hard to compare the two buildings because once again things have been reconfigured. It's like maybe 30% the same, so if you squint you might see some similarities in the layout, but there's just not much to talk about here. What there is a lot to talk about are the other maps of the Killzone series that I've compared so far. I've done Tharsis Depot, Radec Academy, Blood Gracht, and Salamun Market, and I have links to all those videos in the description. I hope you enjoyed this video. Have a great day, everybody.